So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of lay a platform or a base, if you will, as to what to expect and some basic terminology, and quite frankly, just some things that I have not seen explained in other fly tying videos very well. You can find these things, but honestly, you have to kind of dig through videos and find this person or that person and just happen to catch the right video. So we're going to go over some real basic things here. So first, let's start with the seating of the hook and where it is in the vise and why. And if you're new to fly tying, I think all this will be very beneficial. If you've got a little bit of experience under your belt, maybe you don't need this. Maybe you pick something up. And then again, if you've got a few years under your belt, you honestly probably don't need this video. We're going to cover some very basic things. So we have the hook in the vise, and we're going to talk about where it's seated. So you can see how I have it seated right now, where the vise is clamping down on the lower part of the bend. This is typically one of the stronger points in a hook. And so that's why you'll see people seat the hook where they do. Also, the way I like to do it, and if you follow along with any of my videos or if you see me in other videos, we have 2 points here. This little black mark that I put on the hook and the barb. And so we're going to build the fly between these 2 points. You can absolutely go outside of that. This is just a really good rule of thumb to follow, especially if you're new with fly tying. So how do we get this little black mark on the front? It's actually pretty easy. You just need a little tool. This is a bodkin tool. I use it for all kinds of things. That's why you see it burned. And I'll just put it up right behind the eye, and then take a fine tip Sharpie, and I'll just come in and mark that. Now all this is doing is showing us that this front part here is where the head of the fly is going to go, and that's all it's meant to represent. That's also where we're going to start our thread, so we don't want to cover it up. That's giving us a starting point. The back end is typically identified with the barb, so this is where the fly is going to end. A lot of traditional fly tying hook shanks are going to have the straight part of the shank right here start to curve right around the barb, and so you can kind of keep an eye out for that. So let's talk about the length of the shank and the hook itself. So what I've got here is just a totally different hook, but you'll see things that are marked on here like down eye. Obviously this eye is facing down. Some are straight, some are up. ×1 fine. That just means that the wire that was used for the actual hook is a little bit lighter than they would normally use. ×2 short. So on this particular fly, what this manufacturer is saying is that the length of the eye, the actual eye itself right here, is twice as short as what it should be. So when you get the ×1, ×2, ×3, 5, whatever it is long, what they're referring to is the actual length of the eye and how many of those are in front of the shank, from basically your gap here all the way up front. Different hook manufacturers gauge things different ways. So now that we have that out of the way, we'll quickly talk about thread. There's basically 2 types of thread on the market. There's woven thread, and you can think of woven thread as if you've ever braided hair or something like that. The thread is interweaving. And then there's flat thread, and that just means that the thread is literally laying a little more flat. If you can kind of see that, I was hoping to have some exposed so you can kind of see how. There you go. You can get gaps in between the threads. So this would be considered flat thread. Both threads, or both types of threads, will spin up into what's called a rope. One basically starts out as a rope, and the other starts out flat, and you can typically take either one either way. Let's talk clockwise and counterclockwise. This is going to be important for a lot of features and a lot of things that you're going to be doing going forward, and if you pursue fly tying to any degree. And so there's two ways to look at clockwise and counterclockwise. There's with the eye of the hook facing you. So just imagine my fingers are a clock. So we have 12 up here, 3 over here, 6 down here, 9 over here. And this would be clockwise. Counterclockwise would be this way. It'll be the same thing for when you're on top of the hook shank and you're looking down at it. So this means that your bobbin or thread would be out the back. And again, 12 o'clock is up top, 6 on the bottom, 3 and 9 on respective sides. And so if you want to tie counterclockwise, which this will make sense in a minute, you're going to tie or you're going to twist your thread this way where it'll lay flat. Most threads that are woven tend to flatten out if you twist counterclockwise. Flat threads want to spin up going counterclockwise. Okay, so it's just the two ways that they've done that in the textile industry. And so the black dot, so we've talked about that. So this is where we're going to start our thread, right there on the black dot. Now, when we're talking clockwise and counterclockwise on a hook shank, majority, and I'm being very serious here, majority of the flies or fly tires that you will ever come across at a show, on YouTube, on Facebook, or anything are going to either thread clockwise, which means the tip of the bobbin's at the 12 o'clock position, and when you are doing whatever you're doing, your thread is resting on the back side or away from you side of the hook shank. Okay, now if you're going to tie the opposite way, which I do, I'm in a very small minority here, I tie counterclockwise, the thread's going to be resting towards you. And that's the way I like to tie. Short story, when I first started learning to tie, I got a book that said wrap towards you. I wasn't on YouTube or Facebook or anything at the time. And so I just followed what the book said, and I wrapped towards me. I thought my hand was supposed to be below. It didn't clarify. So anyway, that's why I tie counterclockwise. Either way is fine. Get comfortable with the way you like to do it. That's the bottom line. So now when we tie a fly in, I'm going to tie the way I normally tie. So I'm going to start my thread with the bobbin on below. I'm going to use this black mark as the starting point there. It's wearing off a little bit because the thread keeps rubbing it. And there's so we're going to move into the jam knot. There's two ways to do the jam knot. Two effective ways to do the jam knot. One is you take one thread wrap to the front, angle your thread back a little bit, take one thread wrap to the back, and then one more to the front. Now I can let go of everything, and this is what's known as a locking tie or a 3-turn tie, the way I like to refer to it as. And with those 3 thread wraps, you're already, your thread is on, so you don't have to go crazy. And that's usually one of the bigger problems with fly tying in general for new people is learn to trust your thread, learn to trust the technique. The other technique for the jam knot, which is more original, is you start at that same point or wherever your point is that you're starting, and you're just going to angle your thread back at about a 45-degree angle and start to wrap back. That also will create a jam knot. And so there's 2 ways to do it. I use both personally. The reason I like the locking jam knot or the 3-turn tie-in, as it were, is because it has minimal thread wraps involved, and also it that same maneuver will allow you to tie in a majority of material and lock it down in 3 or maybe 4 wraps. And so this is a very effective way to go. And so really that's kind of what I wanted to cover in this video, in case people that are getting ready to join the upcoming classes on basics to build on need this, or maybe more specifically don't need this. I guess one more real quick thing is we can talk about, since my thread's twisting. Keep in mind that 12 is up here, 6 is down here, and so when we did the tie-in thing, I'm going to put a few more wraps and just make sure I don't come undone. But if you hold your bobbin out back and you're twisting around like I'd mentioned before, that's what's going to allow you to open your thread up or twist it up depending on the kind of thread you have, and so that's what's typically called thread control. Some materials are a little more easily handled with flat thread, and some materials like to be handled with spun up thread, or thread that's in a rope, as you might read in some places. So anyway, so that's where we're going to start. I'm going to have several series or several sessions on different aspects of using 4 materials coming up just directly after this. And we're going to get tying with turkey tail, dubbing, peacock herl, and just some wire. And we're going to show you how you can make a ton of flies using those 4 materials. They're all relatively cheap, and you can make a ton of variations and doing a whole bunch of different stuff for quite, I mean, realistically under 150 bucks. And so there you go. If you liked the video, I always appreciate a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, everybody, happy tying, and look forward to seeing you in the classes.